I'm UFC Hall of Famer Pat Miletich.
I'm naturopath Doc Will Spencer.
I'm mindset expert Nicholas Spone. If you want to detoxify your cells, remineralize your body, and live up to your true health potential, you've come to the right place.
We are the Cell Saviors.
This is one of my favorite topics, probably one of our more controversial topics, the ideal human diet. So we were at an expo in North Carolina giving a talk a few weeks ago, and I remember this topic came up, and Dr. Will, you started to talk about the ideal human diet. And I remember there's a guy and his son sitting in the front row who almost got up and left, and he was not having it, that parts of his diet that he believed were healthy, as you said, were not healthy for him. And he stayed and ended up coming to buy the Cell Saviors Regeneration Kit. And really, I think
It's the why, though, right?
To buy
It was the why. Instead of just telling somebody that it's not healthy,
yes,
you have to have the knowledge, which Will, of course, has, to tell him why it's not healthy.
and that's where we're going right now. So there's so much information out there. If you're anything like me, you've tried many different diets, many different frameworks. And if you have an open mind, I think it leads you to this type of system and thinking. So we'll get into, we're going to cover a lot of ground here. Dr. Will, what is the ideal human diet?
Simply animal products and fruits and vegetables. That is what I consider, what I found out to be the best for healing. And then you got to stop eating certain things that, there's some things you want to abstain from that are classified by a lot of people as healthy, but really are not.
Let's get into those right now. I guess, what are the things that people are eating that they are thinking are healthy and they're not?
I have a group, it's called cereal grains, nuts, and seeds. That's the biggest offenders there are, or anything made from them. So that includes your flours, your oils, the plant vegetable oils.
Basically, every hospital lunch. Should served in every hospital in America.
School lunch.
And schools, yeah.
But wait a second. Almonds are so healthy. We need heart healthy grains. And
Did you just say heart healthy grain?
yeah, that's what they say.
Yeah, that's what they say.
That's what they say, right? Wherever they are. The American Heart Association, you need heart healthy grains, and you need, nuts have the healthy fats and proteins, and seeds are so good for you. We make bread out of them, and right? Like, am I missing? What am I missing here?
You're repeating a lot of marketing data designed to get you to buy into a program that's not vibrantly healthy.
Say it isn't so.
And for many years, I don't even know how many years it's been, where just one book, all you have to do is read one book to get some really good data on what's causing American obesity and diabetes and illnesses. Read a book called Wheat Belly. And once you get done reading that book, if you don't have a new perspective on the situation that's going on in America, I don't know what to tell you. You're beyond.
There's a host of books in that same vein that are highly recommended, like Grain Damage, like Fiber Menace.
So let's talk some high level principles about why that happens. I know, you talked about off camera, plants wanting to protect their babies. They want to reproduce. They have a goal in mind, I guess, as it were, that doesn't involve being eaten by us. Is that right?
Right.
So how do these grains, nuts, and seeds protect themselves from predators?
So the plant can't run from the predator, so it has to put chemistry and protect that baby. And what
Maybe we need a seed, a nut.
seed, a nut,
Right.
a grain, a bean, the thing you can plant into grow another plant. And so for the plant to preserve the species, it puts natural chemistry into the baby. So if the predator eats the baby enough of them, it's going to damage and eventually kill the predator. And unfortunately, right now, the humans are the predators, eating the babies of the plant.
Yeah, and it should tell you a lot in terms of chemical weapons that were created, World War I, for instance, by using beans, right?
And
Beans were used, yes, and mustard seed, right? To create chemical weapons against fellow man for battlefield. And they were so horrifying, in fact, that they had to be outlawed because of the ramifications on the battlefield and what they did to human beings.
All right, I've got a lot of questions. We got a lot of ground to cover here. So I guess let's stick to this category real quick. What specific chemistry are they putting in to grains, nuts, and seeds that are doing damage to the human system?
They being
Plants.
the plants.
Yeah, what are the plants putting in?
protect the species.
Correct.
So you've heard of gluten,
Uh-huh.
right? It's not good for us.
I've never heard of gluten at all.
Right.
Anyway, go ahead.
So it's a protein, and there's a lot of different proteins in the plant, but the proteins of the plant is the delivery mechanism for the chemistry, which makes most of the plant up, most of the baby up. So you have lectins is another one.
So lectins are okay.
Phytic acids, which are plant chemicals also. And when we consume them, like what happens with gluten? We eat the gluten that's in the plant. There's also the farming chemicals involved in that too. But on the natural side of things, you have what does the gluten do? The gluten disrupts your gut terrain. The mucosal lining gets damaged, your peristaltic action gets damaged, it upsets your microflora, microorganism population, it impacts your acid levels in your digestive tract. And that's just gluten.
That's just one.
That's just one. And that is the protein, though, in a petri dish. So here's where clinical science and natural science meet in great odds. In a petri dish, they have protein. They have the minerals. They have these elements that are legit, like it's a protein. Gluten is a protein. But when you swallow that protein is when the difference starts.
So on paper, it looks like, hey, this is healthy for the system, but in reality, how it functions is it's doing damage.
Right. In the functionality, when you swallow it, it becomes a poison and causing problems. In the petri dish, though, it's just a protein. And so I call it the shuck and jive because you got, hey, it's a protein. Now we can push, you're nutrient dense, so now you can eat beans and peanuts instead of eating meat to get your protein. But as soon as you swallow that plant protein is the damage. That's when the damage and everything downstream is problematic.
Yeah, and one of the things I've had an incredible sensitivity to that's caused me a lot of pain and discomfort is oxalic acid, oxalates, which are
Another problem.
which are so prevalent in not only spinach, almonds. I mean, so many of these grain, nuts, and seeds have high levels of oxalates, and I mean, joint pain, inflammation, muscle pain, fatigue, mood stuff. And Sally Norton, I don't know if you guys are familiar with her, but she's got a book, Toxic Superfoods, specifically on oxalates and how hard they are to detox from the system. So, all right, so we covered grain, nuts, and seeds. Let's take a step back and let's talk about the human system. Because so many people believe so many different things about what the human system is meant to digest and incorporate. And I've kind of come up with my own understanding through hearing other people's opinions, but let's talk about what's the human system built to digest?
Right. So historically, it's a hunter-gatherer type. So we haven't been an agrarian or an agricultural-based system very long in evolution history. There has been some over history, and I learned this from an anthropologist that studied and taught for 40 years, based on 42,000 years of history. And so his whole thing was we're hunter-gatherers. We're seasonal eaters because we didn't have refrigeration and storage methods in evolution very long. It's relatively new in history. And so we were eating things that were seasonally available. We were eating things that we could gather or collect or hunt or fish or, get. And then there was longer periods like we talked about in the earlier video about the fasting. That was a natural part of life that you just didn't eat. You ate more like a predator, more like a lion or a wolf or a wild type of a hunter. That is more of how we've evolved, and now we have all these other things popping up of niches that, oh no, we're vegetarian, and then we have all these other different.
Well, then what did nature give us? You know what I mean? We have to understand that. I mean, the orchard, the apple, the fruit trees, the vegetables, the animals that we would hunt, or the fish that we would catch. I mean, I caught on early. Some bad experiences with diet was that I had to finally realize that if I was a caveman who could only subside on the land, I would eat vegetables and fruits and animal meats. That's just the way it is. And I always had my best health and best performance from eating that way.
But wait a second. Our closest relatives in the animal kingdom, so to say, are the great apes. And they're almost strictly herbivores, right? Or frugivores. So why are we not like them? And they're super muscular and strong and powerful.
I would say this, though, at the same time, apes eat monkeys. Apes eat a lot of monkeys. They 100% do.
There's a lot of
They are carnivores
that we're told
in many ways.
that are not active, just like that.
Yeah.
And don't they have to eat all day long? I mean, they have different systems than us too, right? If we look at our diet, but let's look at stomach acid, for example. Theirs is much higher than ours, is my understanding. We're closer to a lion as far as stomach acid goes. That's a complete carnivore than we are to something like a silverback gorilla. Is that correct? With stomach acid?
No.
No?
Not in my experience. Just look it up. I mean, I don't have that data in my head right now.
Yeah.
You can look it up online.
We're closer to a carnivore, period.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. We're carnivore.
I'm saying we're closer to a cat than we are to a gorilla
Or a cow.
frugal. Well, a cow's, yeah. That's a whole different system.
So.
So the idea of eating, I mean, listen, people like the idea of being vegetarian, staying off meat, but I think we're just.
That's an emotional thing.
I understand. Listen, I understand.
That's a spiritual, emotional thing, right?
I understand, and I've been down that road a little bit because.
And I have feelings for animals.
100%. 100%. And we don't want to cause suffering to other beings. And many spiritual teachers are teaching.
I mean, Nick, let's be honest. Why do I fish and not hunt? Because fish can't scream.
That's it.
But just in the electromagnetic scale, a carrot, when you pull that carrot out of the ground, they did this research like 20 years ago, screams louder than a fish or a cow.
This is how I got there as well, Will, is that plants are living beings. They're living beings just like an animal. They have a consciousness, right? They, in some ways, think and feel and want to survive. And so we're eating life in any way. I mean, life has to consume life to live on. We're getting eaten by bacteria and parasites all the time.
Everything's eating everything.
I mean, this is the way of life, and to reject that is to reject the universal blueprint.
Nature.
Yeah.
Survival of the fittest, right? And we're seeing that ramped up so much more right now in modern times. During the COVID ramp up of everything, we are seeing nature of survival of the fittest. Nature is consuming human beings at a massive rate right now because they are not in accordance with nature. They are using synthetics, right? Synthetic products from that world, and they are finding out that it's not working out for them very well.
Well, and so to talk about the ideal human diet, back to this framework of when we live in harmony with nature, we are probably hunting, we're eating wild berries, vegetables I have mixed opinions on, or we're grazing livestock, in a way that is healing the land.
Sure.
And I guess, well, here's a question. What about dairy products? In non-pasteurized or fermented raw, fresh dairy products, does that fit into the ideal human diet?
I believe it does.
I think it's safe to say we've seen numerous over the years of my experience of, for many years, talking to people who, I know people that had a cow, a Jersey in their backyard in suburban America because the unpasteurized milk from that Jersey cow healed their daughter's digestive symptoms that were severe. I mean, extremely severe, to the point that the medical community were going to take the daughter from them for not following their advice, which is going on all over the country. And they put a cow in their suburban America backyard until the neighbors said, this has got to stop. And then somebody donated a farm to them. It was like a 10-acre farm, a lady who was, elderly and just was done doing that. And then they moved to the farm and have lived that way. They have a very popular show on YouTube, over 1 million followers. Yes, dairy is in the right form. Yes.
In the right form. So and again, this is probably a whole different video as well, but any research on dairy, you have to ask, well, was it pasteurized or was it unpasteurized? Because raw milk has within it an enzyme, that the lactase enzyme, which helps us digest lactose. If you heat it, you kill the enzyme, but you don't get rid of the lactose. And so growing up, anytime I ate any dairy, it was like, as a kid, I just always had phlegm and mucus in my throat and nose.
Right.
And I remember, for whatever reason, I gave it up for a week. And it was like, when it went away, a couple days, it was completely gone.
And my endurance went through the roof when I gave up pasteurized milk and for, when somebody talked to me about that. I don't even know when it was, 30 years ago. So just stop drinking pasteurized milk for a month and see what happens to your endurance. And it completely changed as well. It took it to a whole nother level, even on top of me not eating, grains and bread.
Sure. Anyway. Sorry, we're starting to get a little bit of a picture here. One challenge I have with humans being seasonal eaters is I believe our ancestors very likely found fruit, whether they cultivated or just found wild fruit, and probably very early on figured out how to dehydrate and maybe ate dried fruit, dates, figs, cranberries, grapes, into raisins throughout the entire year. Is that a fair assessment?
They figured out how to preserve things, yes.
So it probably maybe it's not as ideal as having fresh, but humans probably all around the world ate.
And certainly meat all year round.
Preserved. Certainly meat all year round.
Salted, yeah.
Certainly. Okay.
To a certain extent. But there's still seasonal eating going on.
Yeah.
As what Will was saying.
Yeah, and we were just talking about mulberries. I have mulberries growing right now, and I was just eating those mulberries, and they're actually pretty low in sugar. They're not like our Frankenberries that people are eating these days, which are just
And it wasn't me. And rewind really quick. That when we talk about carnivores, even the things like that, when we talk about, when I look at bears, for instance, they do eat berries. They're hunting for berries, things like that, because the antioxidant properties of those berries, their bodies know they're going to eat what they need. So yes, they're killing elk, they're killing other animals for prey, for the meat, for the vast majority of the elements that they're getting out of, berries and all those different types of things.
Sure.
Huckleberries.
Yeah.
What was it? Yogi Bear, right? And so
I thought he was stealing picnic baskets, though. That's a different.
Right. But huckleberries are very high in antioxidants, right?
Yeah.
So
and they're a seasonal thing.
Even from a cartoon, we can learn.
So from berries, I guess berries have sugar, fruit has sugar. What is the impact of sugar, maybe different forms of sugar, and what's its role in the human diet?
So it's really not sugar as we know a processed sugar. It's a natural fruit sugar. There's a couple of different fructose, sucrose, but they're also surrounded with insoluble and soluble fiber. and you have other compounds in there that benefit and work together, it only becomes the sugar when you take it out, extract it out, isolate it, and condense it. Now you have a sugar. That's my philosophy.
So juice.
Otherwise, it's a fruit sugar, which is there's several fruit sugars in fruit. So
juicing or high fructose corn syrup, I mean, those are mainlining the sugar without.
yeah, you have a highly processed condensed sugar.
So tell me if I'm thinking about this properly, is that I've been doing pretty strict carnivore for 6 or 7 months now, have recently added some berries. But everyone says, well, where do you get your fiber? Don't you need fiber? You need fiber. But my understanding is if you're eating sugar, you need the fiber to slow down the metabolism of it, to push that through. And so a piece of fruit has the fiber in it that helps that process. But if you're not eating things that have the sugars in them, you don't actually need fiber. Is that a fair assessment? What's your take on that?
My take is we don't need any extra dietary fiber if you're eating animal products, fruits, and vegetables at all. It only becomes a problem when you have the grains, nuts, and seeds, because the damage that ensues into your large and small intestine with your peristaltic action from those, you need the fiber, the bulk, to push that stuff through rather than have the natural muscle movement to make things go through.
And the body, but in terms of sugars, correct me if I'm wrong, Will, that it's the processing of sugars, all the different pathways of processing sugars, with the fluoride in our water, the massive amount in our water is causing a lot of disruption in that area as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because they use chemicals to do certain things like bleaching and extraction, and those chemicals are not good for our metabolism. They're good for the process to get an end product, but they're detrimental to us because some of that residue transfers through with the product, and then we consume the product.
And what you said earlier, where fruits are being used to deliver chemicals into the human population.
In the modern world, yes. In the ancient world, probably not.
Right.
But okay, so and I might disagree with you here, but I've been going back and forth on for actually years now the role of vegetables. Did our ancestors eat vegetables? If they did they look anything like what we have now? If they did eat vegetables, how long have they been eating vegetables? I mean, I was doing some research at the time on things like broccoli and Brussels sprouts and carrots and
Cauliflower, broccoli, all those things.
Some of those only came around in the last couple thousand years. They, like our ancestors long ago weren't eating those. Right. Were our ancestors going through a field and saying, "Oh, spinach! Like I'm going to make a salad." Maybe. I really doubt it.
But at the same time, I mean, you've got to say to yourself, there's so many medicinal herbs out there that are meant to be eaten as well, and if we're in tune with our bodies and nature, like an animal is, it's going to find those that it needs for the missing elements that are in them because of those medicinal herbs pulling elements, particularly for that type of herb, right? So I can't 100% say, but this getting to the spinach thing and other plants, I can't say that humans aren't dumb enough to see a deer eating something and go, I'm going to try it, right?
So I like.
I know that's off on a tangent.
Yeah,
medicinal herbs and things like that.
Herbs might be another segment here.
Yeah.
But what's your
Eating vegetables?
Yeah, vegetables. But even some vegetables have seeds in them, right? Like if I eat a bell pepper, I don't know if we call that a fruit or vegetable, or a tomato. Those have seeds in them. They also have lectins. They also have some of these anti-nutrients. So at what phase of vegetables should we stop eating them? What classes of vegetables should we avoid? Which ones are okay?
So the seed thing goes to if it can grow another plant. So take tomatoes. I've saved seeds before. For that seed to grow another plant, that tomato has to be like rotten in order for the seed to be mature to use. It goes for a strawberry. It goes for almost any fruit. It has to go past ripe into the next breakdown stage of rot, basically, that we don't eat. then the seeds become available to grow again. Those are immature seeds. Like, the real classic is sweet corn versus dry corn,
Seed corn.
seed corn. So sweet corn on the cob or cut off the cob in that state
It's not ready to grow another plant.
it's not going to grow in the plant. It's in a vegetable state. We eat that as a vegetable.
Oh, that's not a grain.
It's not a grain at that point. It only becomes a grain when it goes to clearly through the whole developmental and life cycle and then becomes dormant in the fall. Then that little seed or kernel, dry kernel, becomes loose in the cob and you can take it out easily. And then that's when it becomes a grain, cereal grain.
That's when it's got all the
That's what all the
chemicals and anti-nutrients.
Yeah, to protect it then for when it starts to drought.
So the peppers in my garden, the tomatoes in my garden, the zucchini, the cucumbers, those seeds aren't mature. They're not protecting them yet.
Correct.
They're just, okay.
They're in the developmental state, but they're in the vegetable state. And you can eat them, and they're not going to harm you.
Interesting. Just when I think I know it all, turns out I'm still learning. Okay.
I've eaten a million jalapenos and bell peppers, and I really have never felt any detrimental effect from it.
Not at all.
Right. So what about lectins in peppers? I mean, that's not an issue or it depends on, I mean, it's different for different people.
It depends on the health of your digestive tract and your immunity, because what doesn't affect me may affect him, or vice versa, depending on the damage that is ensued and the inability for our digestion to happen properly.
And I think that's why I was so sensitive to oxalates, is I had several issues at the same time, right? Where you could eat a spinach smoothie and maybe be okay. I ate it and it would put me out.
And I don't know, and I think that there's something to be said for humans, pardon me, in diversity of our diet as well, spreading things out somewhat, so not too much of one thing necessarily. Well, I think that there's something to be said there, because one thing I will say for myself, only in my own experience, that there's nothing on the planet that I can't eat. And I've eaten a lot of things. A lot of things that other people will not eat, won't even touch, right? So the diversity of my diet throughout my lifetime has been
Pretty wide.
and I'm talking foods from all over the planet, that I'm talking in alleyways in Baghdad, or not in Baghdad, in like Afghanistan, of meat on a stick, and we don't even know what it is, and I'm eating it and loving it. Or in an alleyway in Tokyo, Japan, of eating,
Well, I mean, I think humans are nothing if not adaptable. I mean, we're at the top of the food chain for one reason. We're adaptable.
If our systems are working right.
Well, right, but not that every food that we can eat is going to allow us to thrive, but it may get us by for a while, right? Like, we could eat grains for a few weeks to get by. We're not gonna thrive on that.
That's a really good point, because that's how they've been evolved in history, is they were a survival food that was available, not like we have today. There was no industrial agriculture in the past to mechanize that process. Otherwise, cereal grains were a very laborious process to turn them into something that they were calling food.
Well, they were fermented, and how did they make bread back in the day?
Well, historically, it's a 14-day process to make what they call bread, like in biblical times. It was taking the grain, grinding it up.
well, sprouting it first, though, right? Wouldn't they sprout it first?
They can do that. They did it first, then dry it, then grind it. And they fermented it, and they did that three different times, and over the course of 2 weeks, to make a dry, powdery substance that they would call bread. Not grain, dry ground, and use that with yeast and these other things to make a bread like we have. It's not the same bread historically.
Well, right.
My list keeps getting longer here. We'll try to let's wrap some of this up. But okay, so I'm learning so much. What about oil? So we've got olive oils, avocado oils, coconut oils, heart-healthy vegetable oils, which are from vegetables and
There's a lot of medical doctors that have been educated to tell people, who give lectures to people and talk about vegetable oils being supremely healthy, and we're constantly seeing the push against,
No red meat, butter. You got to have,
against
vegetable oil.
tallow, against grass-fed, salted butter. And it's all about, the heart-healthy vegetable oils, when we know that throughout history, those vegetable oils were used as lubricants in tanks and war machines and in fuels for diesel vehicles, right?
Well, I think for the vegetable oils, all you need to do is overlay consumption of vegetable oils in the United States and Alzheimer's, dementia, heart disease,
Sure.
obesity. I mean, there's so many factors that they just overlay perfect correlation almost, right?
But when you drain your, when you drain your tank's oil pan, and being able to cook chicken with that, I mean, that's really economical.
So what about olive oil? Olive oil is supposed to be healthy. Does that have?
So olive oil is coming from the whole entire olive. It's not coming from the seed.
Okay.
So, and then they press the oil out of that.
So extra virgin olive oil, which is cold pressed, probably okay. Highly treated olive oil, which is cut with some vegetable oil and claimed to be something else, probably not. So your
Vast majority is
source is important.
Yeah. There's very few.
Well, they say that the amount of olive oil sold around the world is way above the amount of olives harvested to make the oil. Like the numbers don't match. So, so the source of that could be pretty important, huh?
And then if you are taking a plant oil of any kind and heating it up for cooking, you're causing plasticizing, which is carcinogenic. So you're taking the plant oil, lubricant, and you're heating it to higher, over like 108, 110 or higher. And when you're cooking, that becomes extremely problematic.
That's like roasted olives. Then by roasting them, you make them more damaging, more toxic.
But olives are fruit. They would be okay.
Doesn't matter, no. You're taking the oil of a plant and you're heating it, and it causes what's called plasticizing, which you're causing it to become carcinogenic or toxic.
And that doesn't happen with butter, lard,
Does
tallow.
not happen with animal fat.
Ghee.
Correct.
Okay.
Animal fat does not have a plasticizing step in any of it when you use it for cooking at all.
So a good fresh olive oil
You can eat it.
on something,
Yeah. Salads.
a dressing might be great.
Yeah.
Cooking it probably not a good
As
idea.
you heat a plant oil up, it becomes bad.
Okay. So we've covered a lot so far. Let's touch back on herbs. There is nothing that brings more flavor and variety to food than and freshness than culinary herbs. And I've had those in my carnivore diet. And what's your opinions on medicinal herbs, culinary herbs, I guess humans eating herbs in general?
I think, from my perspective, this is one of the easiest ways to prove that humans are soil and vice versa is when we know the soil is nutrient deficient, which we talked about all the time. What deficiencies there are, what specific elements are missing out of the soil, all of the medicinal herbs or weeds that are growing, each one of those is pulling one or two elements that are the void in the tests from the soil, right? Conversely, when we talk about the human body and I'm low on any elements, when the tests come back, proper tests, and it shows that I'm missing these elements out of my system that causing my genetic expression or to not be proper, my immune system suffering from whatever illness it is that I'm dealing with. If I take those herbs of the elements that I'm missing matched up and micronize them and put them in a capsule and take them, that all of a sudden I feel better. My problems start to diminish and go away, the symptoms of, right? So that's what they mean to, when I talk about a bear supplementing with berries and antioxidant properties to the meat diet that it has, it's the same thing for us when we're eating those medicinal herbs are fulfilling needs.
It goes back to what we talked about on the last video, which was the cause of disease is toxicity and malnutrition. And so those herbs can be putting back in
The missing elements that we need.
the trace minerals and the elements that we're missing.
Yeah.
And on the medicinal side, there are some toxicity levels that are beneficial in lower dosages. So there's a whole herbology in the medical or medicinal side is you can actually take, say, dandelion, for instance, you're having a kidney issue. Well, you're having a kidney issue because of toxins or malnutrition, and then the elements that the dandelion is collecting and sequestering, the
Calcium, magnesium, irons.
and other things is high in and then you take the dandelion as a supplement, the root or the leaves or whatever, which those benefits, then you're filling the void, like Pat was saying. So now your kidneys start to function better and the issue goes away.
So I heard someone who was a Chinese medicine herbalist say this, and it kind of stuck with me as an interesting point, was that herbs stimulate an immune response because herbs have anti-nutrients, and so they stimulate an immune response, which in the short term can help us eliminate symptoms, detoxify, and that response can be a beneficial stimulus to our systems. Is that a correct way to think about it?
I agree with that.
And
yeah.
And I also heard her say that plants are medicine and animals are food. And that was like a big one because she was a vegan. This is a woman that I learned from. She was a vegan for 10 or 15 years and ended up bedridden from it and went strictly on a carnivore diet, a whole animal nose to tail diet, and immediately started to have some recovery from the damage done from grains, nuts, and seeds, of course. So talk to me really quickly about whole animal. Pat, you've seen what I eat. Sometimes
What's the whole animal?
Sometimes it makes you squeal. Everything but the squeal, as I like to say. I mean, cartilage in joints, right? Like I'm putting chicken feet, duck heads, all of the organs. I mean, when I say all of the organs, so we're talking about eating the whole animal, bones, the collagen, all of the organs, and like I make a lot of broth, chicken feet, duck heads. I mean, I'm getting as many nutrients from an animal as I can, and I think our ancestors, if they killed an animal, they didn't just eat the back straps and leave the rest, right? Like
that wasn't
they
possible.
First of all pulled the heart out, took a bite out of that. They ate the liver. They probably ate the eyeballs and the brains and the testicles and everything that was every part of that animal.
But what does a carnivore eat when it kills its prey? It eats the internal organs. I mean, that's the first thing that gets eaten because that's where most of the nutrients are.
And I think a lot of carnivores that are on the ribeye diet or the lion diet, I think they're missing a lot of stuff. Like a chicken's a great example. You can eat the gizzard, the heart, the neck, the liver, the feet, the liver, and that's in proportion to probably how we're supposed to eat it, right? And the same thing with a cow. If you ate one cow liver in proportion to the rest of the animal that you're eating, you're probably getting the right mix. And so I think the whole nose to tail philosophy is missed on a lot of people.
Historically, that's how we ate.
Right.
For a long, long time in history.
And specific minerals are used to build specific organs, right? That's
why I eat brains. I mean, you see me eat brains, and actually, brains are better than liver. Kidneys are gross, but I don't mind livers and hearts, but brains are better tasting, and I think they help build your myelin sheaths and they help build the structures of your brain.
Yeah.
It's my philosophy anyway.
Well, I mean, growing up, because I'm as old as I am, there was a time when, and I don't know if they still do, that even Oscar Mayer, way back in the day when I was very young, made head cheese out of the brain with the gelatin.
The whole head that put in there.
Yeah, 100%. So
I'll admit it.
I've been eating brains since I was a child.
My first job out of college was at Oscar Mayer. That's where it started. So I've had a pretty big, some big changes. All right, we made a ton of process. We'll start to summarize. I want to go over one last topic and see if you guys have anything else to share. But fermented food, alcohol being part of that, fermented vegetables, sauerkraut. I guess fermented meat would fall into that category as well. What's the philosophy on ferments there, Will?
I'll go back into history. Fermentation was a preservation method that we've been able to craft into something beneficial over time, especially like salt-cured meats, salt-cured into sauerkraut, So we're getting the salt, minerals, electrolytes, as well as the other items of food that it was preserving. So I'm a fan of fermented food to a point. Clinical observation now with the fad of eating purposefully a lot of fermented food daily, year-round, I'm seeing some big problems.
It's a supplement. Interesting. In my personal opinion, I've done my best through, and when we push our bodies at extreme levels athletically, and we're in tune, our bodies are going to crave things. We can't ignore. That's the problem with human beings, is we ignore sometimes our cravings sometimes, right? Through habits of how we eat or whatever. But my cravings, I've always tried to pay attention to. Like when we came here to film this, when we went shopping for groceries, I had to have pickles. And I had to have quality pickles because I need the sodium so severely that my body was depleted from it. And that's how I've always tried to operate, right? And so that's the way I look at fermented foods. It's a supplementation thing. Eat it when you crave it the most, and it's going to benefit you.
In today's, with today's, I don't know what you call them, the fad, if you will, of eating fermented food, there's a probiotic conversation part of this that I'm noticing some problems, because you're using lactic acid producing bacteria to eat whatever to cause the fermentation, and the fermentation of actually the digestion of the bulk of the food with organisms that are breaking it down, creating lactic acid, which then changes the environment and preserves the food. I'm seeing now that the people are eating year-round and so much things, fermented food things, that where I'm now seeing acidophilus infections, I'm seeing bifidobacterial infections, lactobacillus infections. So these are the organisms that are out of fermentation, out of balance, because they're consuming so much of it and they're in a deficient state to begin with. So they're giving themselves infections. So I'm for fermented food in the moderation, in the seasonal, in not in daily, every day in these high amounts.
So I probably fell into that category because if a little bit's good, more is better. Yeah, right. And so I think there's people that are like, well, if I
like jars this big of yogurt.
Oh yeah,
natural.
Yeah, well, some fermented dairy, and then also I was making homemade sauerkraut and just probably
so in
too much.
There's nothing wrong with those things. It's you're going past the moderation, and you got the big amber theory. If a little bit feels good, I'm gonna have more, and so that is where we become problematic.
You're not like that either, are you, Pat?
Not at all.
I don't think either. Three.
All right, we've covered. What about drinking alcohol?
Well, again, there's a medicinal value there, and then you become, the dose size becomes the problem.
The dose is probably a lot smaller than most people would think, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you see the old videos of specific interviews in, I think it was New York City or Boston, from the 1920s, maybe 1930s, when people were still their own doctors and had a lot of knowledge, and asking how they get rid of, an illness, flu, for instance, things like that. Most of them were talking about, one shot of alcohol, and then certain foods that they would eat, and teas and tinctures that they would use, and then, wrapping themselves up to create the sweat, and just sweating it out. That's how they would do it. And so people were, they were diagnosing themselves and they were treating themselves.
And alcohol, here you become, there again, this having a shot or an ounce versus a shot. Yeah, a shot with some other things versus having a whole fifth of hard alcohol instead of that shot. It becomes problematic again.
Well, many people can't do that. They can't moderate that shot. They should just not probably drink at all is ideal. And I'm really gotten over drinking. I went through a phase. I don't really have a need for it anymore. But so even wine, they say wine is healthy.
different that way. Is it medicinal value to a certain point?
And how grapes are grown now,
How it's processed.
how it's processed now is totally different.
Right.
Wine of old is not wine of today again. It's like before. We have sulfites added as preservation versus they didn't have sulfites back in the day. They actually went through the whole entire brewing process, completion to the end. So it could store then. Now they fast brew everything, including wine, and they use the sulfites to control the fermentation process to keep the corks in the bottle.
So if you want to have wine, you got to grow your own grapes with a soil savers product, and you got to ferment your own wine without sulfites. So you just got to make your own.
There are companies, though, there are farmers that are doing it now, though, sure, that are doing just what we said. They're growing quality fruit, and they're doing the whole process naturally. It takes longer. Usually costs more money, but it's way better for you because wine is medicinal, like I said, up to a point. And it becomes a bit on the toxic side.
The poison is in the dose. All right, so let's recap, and then I think maybe touch on what this looks like in real life. I mean, we've gone over a lot of information, day-to-day diet for most people that would be beneficial, and what maybe to supplement with because our food system is missing a lot of things now. So we kind of talked about avoiding cereal grains, nuts, and seeds, gluten, lectins, oxalates, which cause a lot of issues. Really, as those seeds or nuts get to the point of maturity, well, seeds and nuts probably always, but as seeds mature, I guess within vegetables, as they mature, they become more toxic. When they're immature, we can eat those, consume those vegetables. We talked about the human digestive system as compared to ruminant animals, which have 4 stomachs and ferment. The great apes, which do actually eat meat. And then we're probably the most similar to, as far as stomach acid, to canines and other carnivores. We touched on how really all life feeds on other life. And to be on this planet, there's really no way around that.
Isn't it kind of a creepy feeling to know that you're being currently eaten? Unless you're super healthy, right? The more healthy you are, the more.
But even then, there's things that are breaking down and getting regenerating.
Sure,
and
absolutely.
So like it's just
Every breath you take, you have these little things called bacteria that are living organisms. Every time you breathe in, there's thousands and hundreds of thousands that you're breathing in, and they're giving up their life so you can take them in.
And that's the world we live in. Like, that's the way it's built. If you don't like that, take it up with the creator. I don't know what else to tell you. We talked about vegetables, how vegetables in certain stages and certain quantities are good as long as the seeds haven't gotten to maturity. And we talked about eating the whole animal, right? That nose, the tail, organs, bones, collagen. I don't know if I mentioned, but I eat a lot of broth, put those things in to attract the collagen and minerals. We talked about dairy in the raw form, maybe fermented in certain amounts being good for you.
Exceptionally beneficial.
Being part of the ideal human diet. Probably, I don't know if you have the same opinion, but maybe sheep and goat. I've heard an A2 cow as A2 milk.
Goat.
As more bioavailable and digestible for humans.
If you've got a child that's suffering from digestive issues and some other, I just urge people to,
Try A2 genetic, like A2 milk, grass-fed, raw, generally is way less problematic.
Yes, I can attest to that. Pasteurized milk, like I said, just straight phlegm. We talked about humans being adaptable. We're not at the top of the food chain for no reason. It's the adaptable that survive, but that doesn't mean we're thriving. So
exactly. The thriving part is not happening, but I can attest to having forced to eat food that is so severely not food. It's not food at all.
Substances.
We're for
cafeteria food and
if they're feeding the children at
hospital or at a school, which
the fact that what they feed in hospitals to hospital patients criminal charges should be brought against the whole
establishment.
The entire establishment should be condemned for it. Correct. 100%.
Absolutely. We talked about oils. You do not want to heat plant oils, and probably shouldn't consume anything that has to do with vegetable oil, peanut oil, canola oil.
But it's okay to heat some of those oils in the engine of a machine.
On your sewing machine for lubricant. Sure.
Okay. Animal fats don't have the same problems. Butter, tallow,
When looted, right.
right? We can heat those. I mean, you see how much animal fat I eat, and
I'm impressed. I am impressed. Yes.
it's helped me tremendously. We talked about fermented foods in limited quantities in the right proportion, not overdoing that, can be beneficial. Alcohol for its medicinal qualities in small doses.
Soft syrup, lover doses. Right.
And yeah, I mean, that's kind of a lot. So let's talk about eating for a day, for a week.
An example diet.
Well, how can most people live? I mean, that's pretty Spartan. It sounds like it would be hard to go out to eat. I've
As hard as you think.
I've managed to do it. So let's talk about, like let's go create a week for somebody on what we're calling the ideal human diet.
Boy, we could do that to a certain extent.
Broad strokes, broad principles.
I mean, I'm eating farm fresh eggs,
Lots of eggs,
on the
yes.
farm, with the real eggs, you know what I mean, with the real nutrients.
Just running around in the yard.
In the yard eating the bugs and, picking the clover and whatever they can find. Yeah. That's the real eggs.
They're dinosaurs. They're carnivores.
And if you die and there's a lot of chickens, you're going to be eaten. Yes.
So my point is, that's how they thrive.
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, eggs are a staple. Meat and organs are a staple of mine. Some berries and fruit.
But
And herbs is that's pretty much my diet, but I'm pretty strict. So Dr. Will, you want to share, I guess, kind of what you would recommend to your average patient?
I recommend what we've been talking about ultimately as the goal. Not everybody can make that leap from where they're at to what we've been talking about. So
sometimes it has to be baby steps for people to just modify gradually.
Sure.
I'll recommend and moving as fast as you can, but we have such illness now that some people can't process animal protein at all right now because they're so damaged. For instance, if you eat grains, nuts, and seeds, actually is part of the reason we have lactose intolerance to begin with, because lactase enzyme that we make inside of us is that production is shut off when you eat grains, nuts, and seeds. It really impairs us. We talked about scurvy. Well, grains, nuts, and seeds also shut down that Krebs cycle, your vitamin C cycle. And so you have the damaging effects of those. And sometimes when you just stopping you just can't
It doesn't just all of a sudden start
diet. It takes the transition time, I call it, because you've got to heal from the damage. Then your body has to start producing these compounds that have been altered and stopped for a period of time. So ideally we'll have the goal, animal products, fruits and vegetables, like the ideal. And then you just move in that direction as fast and hard as you can, emotionally and physically. That's how I recommend it. Not everybody can make the leap.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is so many people, their lives revolve around eating and food addictions, and they would rather not be healthy than give up their snacks. I think that's a lot of people, and I hate to say this, but I think a lot of people don't have enough pain to really change. Like, they're kind of uncomfortable. They're dealing with a few symptoms that are building up. But when you get into such a point of pain that you're willing to never look back, you make that transition.
And many times it could be this though. So it took me an entire childhood of pain and suffering to get so sick of it and little messages that would come at me from different angles of things that I would hear from people to actually start researching. So maybe it takes something like this type of conversation for somebody who's been suffering for years to go, well, if they can do it, why can't I? Right? And being that inspiration for people that it can be done, that's what that those ripples in the water, right? That's what we want to create, the positive ripple effect from our lives going out, same thing. So that person out there that's currently suffering from obesity, inflammation, breathing issues, digestive issues, all these different horrible things that they've dealt with for decades, and changing it, and all of a sudden people see them and go, what happened? What happened? That you're an inspiration for a lot of people, right?
There's a point I need
That's
to
what
bring
this is
up
all about.
right now.
Yeah.
Is the psychosomatic side of this. For instance, grains, nuts, and seeds, consuming them have just about a mirrored blood chemistry that taking raw heroin injecting them into our veins creates. So you have this addiction side of it, the psychosomatic addiction.
Pasta and breads are horrible. I'm witnessing it.
Yeah, pasta and breads, and that's the biggest thing. And I notice when I tell people stop eating these things. Well, what am I going to eat? Oh, geez, I don't know. How about vegetables and fruit and stuff? I mean, what else am I going to eat? It is that psychosomatically strong.
And is it you, or is it the parasites that you've created by eating that way?
Yes, thank you for bringing
them the sugars that they crave, and they scream at you and tell you to eat more.
They live on glucose, and what creates the easiest massive amount of glucose is grains and nuts.
What is it you always say that they're screaming at people?
Feed me, feed me. So unfortunately, I have personal experience where like the parasites and out of control bacteria and fungus in the system connect into your digestive tract, and they send messages up your enteric nervous system. So your digestive tract is wrapped with nerves to send signals up to your brain. I'm full. I want more of this. Whatever. And this is my personal experience is when they want something, they are literally an intelligent creature
Short-circuiting that.
connected to your nervous system, putting thoughts directly in your head, and for many people,
They're giving off.
putting them into a state of like being a zombie, walking to the fridge and eating the thing they swore they wouldn't eat. And I've seen that so many times, and it takes it's a process to get over it. And I think it starts with the decision about who you want to be and the type of life you're committed to. And I think that's the first step is if you want to live like everyone else lives, in pain, overweight, not thriving, just do what you're doing.
With thoughts that aren't your own.
Yeah, with mental torture.
Cravings.
Yeah, with
the thoughts.
And the idea, I could never give that up. You're so strong-willed. That's what I was saying. You're so strong-willed. Like, no, I just made a decision about what I would and wouldn't tolerate in my life, and there was no going back. And not that I was perfect, but when I messed up, I got right back on it, and I knew exactly where I was going. And that, for me, was not eating processed foods, not drinking alcohol, eating a whole animal, eating some fruits, eating some herbs.
And the biblical implications of any of this, right? Whether it's the biblical implications of parasites, and when, for instance, and I'm only bringing this up because it's in the Bible in numerous times, when Jesus was healing people or driving demons out of people, or anyone when we talk about the 40 days and 40 nights in the desert and the conversations with demons and all of these things taking place, and the conversation that Jesus had with the disciples, where they said, Lord, we could not drive the demons out of these people. And he said the only way to drive those out is through fasting, heavy fasting, and prayer. So I think there's so much of this tied to with biblical implications as well when we look at it, that obviously mankind's been battling these creatures that are inside of us, these monsters inside of us, for many, many thousands of years, right?
Yeah, and maybe we'll do a whole video on the psychological war, some strategies to recognize your own thoughts from theirs and to start to build up progress. But I think that's what our growth is freeing ourselves from the stranglehold of our lower nature and those cravings and impulses. Because, and this is what I teach, is everything that we do for a short-term pleasure has long-term negative side effects.
100%.
And so anytime the pleasure is up front and the pain is after, you are making your life worse. Anytime the pain or effort
Is first.
or willpower is first and the pleasure comes after that, you are setting yourself up for a long-term success.
You are on the right path 100%.
And so what is eating a bowl of ice cream versus making a bone broth with, you know, like, or even a salad. I mean, I'm not eating salads, but some people do and think those are healthy. But it's or going to the gym, like it's all
Getting up in the morning and going for a run every morning.
the effort on the front and the pleasure of looking in the mirror, being proud of who you are, having the energy, having mental clarity. That all comes from effort and willpower and determination up front.
Generally, the right choices and actions have really good benefits, and the wrong ones always end up being a lot of pain.
Detrimental.
A lot of
Yeah.
yeah.
So maybe that's the frame of mind, is the question of, well, is this pleasure now and pain after, or is this effort now and pleasure? And
But it's amazing to me to eat healthy food, to eat a steak. I enjoy that more than any dessert I could ever eat.
Sure.
And that's the way my kids are as well because of that, right? They grew up that way.
Well, there is hope. Like I went through a phase when I was really struggling with really cravings that were just insane and different phases of different things that didn't,
Completely out of character for yourself.
it didn't even make sense. Like that's not, yeah. And now I don't have any of that. I was at a wedding this weekend. People were drinking, eating sugar. They had donuts there as their dessert. And I'm good. Like I went and I got a thing of meat and I put butter on it and I had water and like I'm solid. I don't have any cravings. There was no effort or willpower because I guess conquered some of those things. So, Any last thoughts, gentlemen? We covered a ton of territory here. People may need to re-listen to this one.
I hope so.
And I'm gonna leave a suggestion here. If you have any questions about specific things we missed, leave a comment. Wherever you're seeing this, you should be able to leave a comment. We will check back in and see if we can answer that specific question about, maybe
We want a lot of questions.
Yeah, maybe we missed some things. We can make another piece of content or answer you directly in the comments. Any last thoughts?
I'm good. I think it's been very thorough. We've gone through a lot.
I think so.
Yeah, it's really not that bad to make a shift, though.
It's freedom. I mean, it's great. Yeah, it's great. So, all right. Thanks, gentlemen. This has actually been very enlightening for me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you for listening to the Cell Saviors podcast. To learn more about the Cell Saviors mission or to buy the minerals and probiotics your body needs to thrive, visit cellsaviors.org.
This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider before making health decisions.